in text number 24, Srila Prabhupada is describing the effect of meeting of two great souls, meeting of two great devotees, great personalities. And what is that effect? As mentioned in the purport, Vasudev considered this meeting to be another birth. So the meeting between two great souls is always auspicious. It is always joyful. Why? Because whenever two great souls meet, they will always speak about the supreme absolute truth. They will converse about Krishna. They will glorify Krishna. Here, in this set of verses, we see Nanda Maharaj, he arrived in Mathura because he wanted to make sure that his son, baby Krishna, was protected. So he wanted to pay the taxes immediately to Kansa. And Vasudev, he's posing all these queries in order to ensure that Krishna and Balaram, they are well situated, they are safe. So they are talking about Krishna. They have concerns about Krishna. So the meeting between two great souls is always auspicious, not only for them, but also for the entire humanity. And this is mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, where Suta Goswami Maharaj, he was speaking to the sages of Naimisharan, sadhus. So it is mentioned, Munyo sadhu prashto aham bhavad bhir loka mangalam yat krita krishna samparshano yena atma super siddhati. Yat krita krishna samparshano yena atma super siddhati. So Suta Goswami Maharaj, this is the word spoken by Suta Goswami Maharaj in response to the queries of sages of Naimisharan. And what it is saying? Jai Shri Shri Radha-Shyam Sundar Krishna Balaram Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. So what he's saying? He's saying, my dear friends, you have asked me very valuable questions. Why are they valuable? Because they are related to Krishna. And because they are related to Krishna, it will satisfy all of you, the self. That is, Yena Atma Suprasiddhati. It will satisfy the self. Prabhupada in the purport writes down of this particular verse, he's saying, there are a lot of questions and answers in this material world. And most of the time, people are busy in the subject matters pertaining to materialistic things, and they have a lot of questions and answers related to that. But none of them is satisfied with those answers. Why? Because they are not related to Krishna. There's no inquiry. And the best example of set of series of questions and answers is Srimad Bhagavatam that we recite every day. So in first canto 112, it is mentioned, Dharmo prajitva kaitava atra paramo nirmasaram vedyam vastavam atra vastu Shivadim Tapa Traimulanam Shrimat Bhagavatam Mahamuni Kritkim Va Parir Ishwari Sadhyo Hridi Avarudhyate Kritibhi Shushibhi Tatkakshanat. So Srimad Bhagavatam is Amalam Purana. It is a transcendental literature which can bring auspiciousness to all the living entities. Why? Because it can satisfy the self. That is why. So Srimad Bhagavatam, as mentioned in the first line, it rejects all the cheating religions. And it propounds the supreme absolute truth, which is Lord Shri Krishna and his devotion services. So when we hear Srimad Bhagavatam from the right sources, that is from the spiritual master who's coming in Shrota Parampara, he's the bona fide one, we are self-satisfied. We are satisfied. And that is the prerequisite to happiness. Happiness which Prabhupada is speaking about in text number 26 that we recited today. So meeting of two great souls is always auspicious for all the humanity. This reminds me of the meeting of Srila Prabhupada and our Guru Maharaj, Gurudev Bhakti Swarup Damodar Swami Maharaj. He was a scientist and he was studying in University of California in USA. So when he met Srila Prabhupada first time, Srila Prabhupada looked at him and he said, "You young Indian boys and girls come to the West for dollar and for knowledge, scientific knowledge. I have not come here to take away anything from this society. In fact, I have come here to give them something very valuable which they have forgotten." When our Guru Maharaj heard that, it is mentioned in his biography, he immediately surrendered himself to Prabhupada. And what he did then, under the guidance, able guidance of Srila Prabhupada, he established BI in 1971. So this is the result of meeting of two great souls. That is the point we have to understand from these set of verses. Similarly, there is another aspect to the meeting of two great souls. And what is that? The transcendental bliss, the transcendental happiness that devotees share. And devotees are always eager to share Krishna. They are not Kripana. They are always eager to share Krishna with others. Krishna Prasada. So as mentioned in Chaitanya Bhagavat also, every year Mahaprabhu's devotee would come from West Bengal to Jagannath Puri. Just see the interaction between the devotees there, how they would meet, how they would deal with each other. And that is actually a wonderful reflection of the very important instruction by Rupa Goswami Maharaj, that is, Dadati pratigrahati goyam akhyati prachati bhungte bhojayas sadvidham priti lakshanam. Loving exchanges. So when Mahaprabhu's devotee, they would come together, what they would do? They would chant. So as mentioned in Chaitanya Bhagavat, that is, when Mahaprabhu's devotee came to Jagannath Puri, Mahaprabhu welcomed them. He sent his devotees, his servants, Govindji and others, to garland them, to welcome them, to give them chandan paste. These are loving exchanges. So it is described. Hari boli chale lena Pandita Shri Mana Prabhu Nidda Yeduti Ghare na swavadhana Ki atyanta priti dekhi ताहारा अंत नहीं जाना, प्रसादा पाठायाचे, प्रसादा पाठायाचे तंडा कटक परवेती नाम। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। The translation of these two verses. So in the first verse it is saying, Hari boli chali lena pandita shriman. Hari boli means, when the devotees, they see each other, they were chanting Hari Hari, Hari Hari, Hari Hari. Ki atyant preeti tahara. This particular verse, the second verse that we recited, it reflects the loving exchanges between Mahaprabhu and Advaitacharya Prabhu. And what is that? That Mahaprabhu sent Mahaprasad till Katak. The word used there is Katak. Katak refers to the place in Odisha. Till Katak to welcome Advaitacharya Prabhu. So once these devotees, they met Prabhupada, they went to the temple of Lord Jagannath and they started performing Sankirtan. And the Sankirtan was so potent that all the inhabitants of Jagannath Puri, they also assembled there. What is this? All auspiciousness for all the living entities. So this is the result of meeting two great souls. Then in the next verse, that is verse number 25, Srila Prabhupada is making a very important point. What is that? That is Kala, time factor. So Vasudev ji, he is lamenting that he could not stay together with Nanda Maharaj. Time factor. Time factor has separated them. So what is time factor? So as mentioned by Srila Prabhupada himself, time is representation of Supreme Personality of Godhead. And time enforces himself, or Krishna enforces himself through time factor. Correct? As mentioned in Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto only, that is, Prabhavam. Time factor is referred as Prabhavam. And what is the Prabhav? Deteriorating influence. So time factor in this material world has a deteriorating influence. So there are many men who do not believe in God, who do not believe in Krishna, but they understand and they see the deteriorating influence of the time factor. And the peak of that deteriorating influence is death. Mrityu sarva haras cha aham, Krishna says in Bhagavad-Gita. Krishna in the form of time, he will take away everything from us, from Jiva. That is the nature of deteriorating influence of time factor here. But in the spiritual realm, it is eternal. There is no present, future, there is no past. It is only here. So time factor here is exhibited in 3 features. Kala, 3 kala. Present, past, future. And it has deteriorating influence. That is the point to understand. So we are together here with the family. Due to the influence of the time factor, we will be separated. And eventually we will all leave this body. That is time factor. So devotee has this understanding and realization. And the one who has this understanding and realization, he will never ever waste a single moment. As Rupa Goswami Maharaj in Nectar of Devotion speaks about it. That is one of the quality of a devotee. He will never ever waste a single moment. And then in today's purport, Srila Prabhupada is making a very important point. That is happiness. Every living entity is seeking happiness. So what is happiness? In Prabhupada words, I'm quoting Prabhupada words here. Happiness is Vishnu. Happiness is Krishna. That is, when we approach Bhagavan Sri Krishna, when we re-establish our relationship with Bhagavan Sri Krishna, and we work within the jurisdiction of that relationship, we become happy, not otherwise. That means happiness can only be obtained in cooperation with Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Happiness can only be obtained in subordination to Bhagavan Sri Krishna. We are Tatha Shakti, subordinate in nature. So, when we understand our subordinate position, we understand and realize our relationship, and we work within the jurisdiction of that relationship, we become happy, not otherwise. So Prabhupada was very much expert in giving analogies. So one of his analogy was, it is just like a kid who is crying. The moment you put the kid into the lap of the mother, he would be very happy. Very happy. Because now he is well protected by the mother. Another analogy, Prabhupada, these are Prabhupada analogies I am giving you. So, it is just like you have a lot of sparks in the fire. And sparks are beautiful as long as they are within that fire. The moment the sparks fall down, the fiery feature is extinguished. Same is the situation with the conditioned soul. Because they are disconnected with Krishna, they are not happy. So once you connect yourself back to Krishna, you become happy. And with respect to today's purport, Srila Prabhupada is describing that what is the proper pursuit of human being happiness? And that pursuit is defined here as cow protection. So if you want to implement it in the society, it begins with the governance. And as per Vedic system, the best form of governance is monarchy under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master or qualified Brahmana. That is the best form of governance. Monarch who's Rajarishi, who's working under the guidance of qualified Brahmanas, qualified Vaishnavas. So if he's working under the guidance of a qualified Vaishnava, what will happen? He will protect the cows. And protection of cow is prerequisite to propagate Brahminical culture in the society. If the cows are not protected, how will you propagate Brahminical culture in the society? And this is the prerequisite to establish Devi Varnashram in the society. So, when you have a monarch who is working under the guidance of a bona fide, qualified Brahmana, we can have Brahminical culture prevalent in the society. Because monarch is working under the guidance of bona fide spiritual master, he has transcendental knowledge. He knows the transcendental science of Krishna consciousness. And he knows what is the real purpose of human form of life. So what he will do? He will engage all the citizen inhabitants in such a way that they achieve the goal of human form of life. So one example coming to my mind is that is of Prithu Maharaj. He was a wonderful monarch. working under the guidance of bona fide qualified brahmanas. And because he had complete understanding of transcendental size of Krishna consciousness, he himself would lead by an example. Monarch, qualified monarch would always lead by an example. Yad yad acharati sreshtha tat tad eva tarojana. He would not be a theoretical man. He would lead by an example. Like for example, in Srimad Bhagavatam, I think 4th canto, Prithu Maharaj organized a big yajna. And in that yajna, he invited all the citizens of the country. And he instructed them himself. And what was his prime instruction to them? That was, Karotu adhokshaja dhyas. That was the prime instruction. This is part of verse from Srimad Bhagavatam. Karotu adhokshaja dhyas. That is, you perform your duties according to your varnas and ashram, but make sure that you keep Krishna in the center. Karotu. Make sure that you always remember Krishna. This was the instruction of the monarch, wonderful monarch, to his inhabitants. And whenever any saintly person would arrive, he would always inquire. The inquiry is for the welfare of all human beings, for the welfare of all the inhabitants. So one time, 4 Kumaras arrived in the palace of Prithu Maharaj. And Prithu Maharaj started inquiring. And he was inquiring for the benefit of all the inhabitants. So he inquired, how could all the inhabitants of my country could be relieved from material existence? And 4 Kumaras were very much pleased to hear that. The point that we were discussing in the beginning, the meeting of 2 great souls. Prithu Maharaj, he was a great soul, pure devotee of the Lord. And 4 Kumaras, great souls. So what was his inquiry? How could all the inhabitants of my country could be delivered from material existence? So when 4 Kumaras heard that, they were so pleased. And Sanat Kumara said, Sadhu prashto, sadhu prashto, sadhu nam. Sarvabhuta hitatmanam. Sarvabhuta hita atmanam. Bhavati yata. It's not coming. Sorry, it's not coming. But he was saying that you are a saintly king and you know the transcendental science, but still you are asking these questions for the benefit of the citizens of your country. I'm so pleased with you, my dear king. So, whenever great souls are meeting, what happens? All the discussions, all the questions, answers, they become conclusive to the audience and to the speaker. They become conclusive. And they eventually bring ultimate happiness for all. And that is the happiness that Srila Prabhupada is talking about. So to facilitate it, the monarch, he should facilitate the cultivation of transcendental knowledge among the masses. So once he does that, all the citizens, inhabitants will have the understanding, complete understanding of Bhoktaram Jagatapasam Sarvaloka Maheshwaram Saharde Sarvabhutanam Yatva Mam Shanti Rachite. Because now all the inhabitants of the country, they have this understanding and knowledge that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. He is the proprietor of everything. What will happen? In Prabhupada's words, this is peace formula. Huh? And you cannot have happiness unless and until you are peaceful. Correct? This is the peace formula, huh? In terms of words of Srila Prabhupada. So that means when we have a government who is working under the guidance of a qualified Brahmana, then they have the transcendental knowledge. And they should facilitate the propagation of that knowledge among the masses. And that will eventually bring all the citizens, all the inhabitants of the country to the platform of happiness that Srila Prabhupada is talking about in today's purport. Not otherwise. Like Prabhupada said one time, that if all these governments, they allow us to do this Sankirtan all over the world, we can achieve peace and happiness in the society. So they should help us doing that. But most of the time, especially in Western countries, they stop it. They don't allow us to do that. So nowadays, as you know, we have a government which is democratic, correct? Which is government of the people, by the people, for the people. But as per Vedic system, the real government should be the representative of Lord Vishnu. And when you have that, you will have cow protection, you will have cow protection, and you will have peace and happiness in the society. So with this message, I stop here. Any questions or comments?
Cow protection is very necessary for human society. So, but here in this land, India, actually in purport animal, the discussion about the animal inhabitants and prosperity of human life depending on the animal look after. If somebody is looking after the animals, it means he is very curious to look after the human being. But the cow is a very special soul. It is not animal. It is the mother cow. Only in India people say Go Mata. Right? And here you go to anybody's house in villages, actually in their house they have a place where there is a Go Mata. So Vasudev, because he was under jail and he didn't look after his cows for quite some time. And Nanda Maharaj, he is the king of Braj who has the highest number of cows under his protection. So this meeting of these both souls is super great because you can never find an example like this. So I think you have very good class. I'm very happy to hear. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for the comment. Any other question?
Thank you for that wonderful class, Prabhu. Like you said, we live in a democratic system now in most countries, and the fact is, you have elected representatives. And say, if we want to look at other countries, if we were to look at India, Prabhupada often writes, in his futuristic plans that every member of parliament should be an initiated devotee and things like that. So if we were to look at things practically, how are we today to have a system that had the best of both worlds? Because we can't impose a, a monarch or a king in today's time. How are we to have the best of both worlds, where we have a democratic system, but also ensure that, these practices of cow protection and other such things are maintained?
So the answer to your question is education. That means we should try to educate people in the science of Krishna consciousness. And the best way is, as we are doing, distribute books, distribute Prabhupada books, distribute Bhagavad-Gita, so that people in general, they come out of ignorance and they understand the real purpose of human form of life, and they understand the significance of cow protection. So the answer is education. We need to educate these people through preaching, through book distribution. So when you have that, of course, as you said, we as a ISKCON, we cannot change the form of the government in India or in any other country just like that, correct? But at least we can educate the society, we can educate the people. And when you educate the people, they'll be aware of cow protection and other things. And that will help us. And that will help us in getting the best of both the worlds. That's all.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna.
So many things like, helping others, cow protection, everything, looks like sattva-gun.
Looks like?
Sattva-gun. Mode of goodness.
So yeah, mode of goodness.
Mode of goodness. It seems to be like Mother Teresa sort of thing, helping others, dedicating our lives, sacrificing ourselves for some good cause. Don't you think it's like completely different from what actually we like want from, God? Like everybody has some desires, like you also have some desire, I also have some desire. Many people come with, many intentions, like different intentions. So the intention should be one, because, like if you want to help somebody, there are so many ways to help somebody. But what's the, I think there should be some good reason, because, authentic reason to, so that for the ultimate good. Because for many centuries, people tried, very hard to make this situation better, like to make this world better. But it degraded as the day passed, it's degrading. So how you can, I don't think that it's completely possible, because it's, I think it's completely, imagination. So what do you think, like, because it's obvious that you're also doing bhakti-yoga, I'm also doing bhakti, practicing in some, in some manner. But, practicing bhakti-yoga means to have dedicated our souls to God, and God will do everything for us, what we want. It's obvious, because, we are completely, in a different kind of mood, not in the, help, this kind of. So nowadays it's, becoming more worse. Everybody is, selfish. What do you think, like, is it possible for today's world to?
Just yeah. So it is possible, provided we are allowed to perform Yug Dharma, Sankirtan all over the world. So if they allow us to do Sankirtan, if they allow us to propagate the Yug Dharma, then everybody can eventually come to the platform of Sat, mode of goodness, as you were talking about it. And when people are in the mode of goodness, they can really understand this transcendental science, and then situation can be improved and it can be adjusted. Why adjusted? Because as we said, other devotees said, we cannot change the government just like that, correct? Because we are devotees, we are here. But at least when we propagate this Sankirtan movement, it will have positive influences on the masses in general. And what is that influence? They will eventually come to the platform of at least mode of goodness. And when they are on the mode of goodness, when you distribute books and through preaching programs, they can understand the purpose of human form of life. And then situation can be improved and adjusted. That's all.
We can try for it. It's still imagination, but we can try for it.
But we can do kirtan, na? Sankirtan,
Yes, we
going
can
out,
do
doing
kirtan.
Sankirtan. That's why I said.
Okay.
Thank you for listening. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai.
Krishna